this is like my most passionate, like hot take that I have about the creator economy, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Beast is an incredible businessman. His work ethic is insane. I'm not talking crap about Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the way he talks about content is like annoying to me. I'm like, dude, like what? You don't have to like have 100 different zooms, boom, 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 crazy text in your face. Like that's like soul sucking, man. And it's like, I've seen some of his content and I'm like, oh, like everything is like optimized for 100% retention. It's like, dude, you're like a drug dealer now. I'm like, you're just a drug dealer giving people more and more potent drugs to get their attention. Everyone is now copying Mr. Beast's style. It's all about like, even TikToks now, like, it's all about like big text and just like zoom and then cha-ching and boom, explosions. And I'm just like, dude, stop. Like this is just takes away the soul of like what it is to create. And maybe I'm just a boomer. Maybe I'm just wrong when it comes to this. And everyone's like, no, dude, that's the game. If you can't play the game, don't play the game. Then fine, I understand, but I don't want to play that game. I never want to play that game of like just having to hyper optimize everything for every millisecond of attention. And I'm like, this is terrible. Why would you want to create like this? You're at the mercy of the algorithm.
All right, welcome to another episode of Creator Lab. I have a special guest there for you today, Zaid Admani. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to do this. Finally.
I know, man. This has been long in the making. For people who don't know, we've been speaking in the DMs on Twitter. I think even in Telegram, which is funny because we've got an Not Investment Advice NIA Telegram group chat, which is for the other podcasts I do, and you're in there commenting sometimes as well. But I'd actually seen your stuff pop off on TikTok probably like a couple years ago. So that's how I first saw you. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is the same guy. I didn't realize it was the same person. So nice to finally have the worlds colliding here, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk today.
And I will say as well, we got to get this captured on the pod. We both realized we're both from Pakistani background, so you had to represent. I'm trying to think if I've had other Pakistani people on the show. Maybe I feel like there must have been some at some point, but that's a nice little bonus for me today as well. Got to send this to the parents after. They're going to be happy. Got to represent,
that's right.
You know?
That's right. You know, I was telling my parents as well, I'm going to be talking to Pakistani podcaster, and they're just immediately like, oh, ask him where he's from. Ask him what his favorite dish is. And I'm like, all right.
Nahari all day, you know, just.
Yeah, I'm more of a biryani guy. Nahari gets too spicy for me.
Oh, okay. Biryani is hard to beat, though. You're right. Yeah. It's hard to pick one, but yeah, they're both up there for me, man. Anyway, well, good to have you on. Appreciate you making the time. Let's let people know what you're doing, why we connected in the first place. You're Admani Explains on socials. But I saw you popping off on, I think it was during the pandemic probably, right? I think you were going pretty hard. I think you started making stuff in 2019 on TikTok, but later 2020 it popped off. But we're going to also talk about, you're also a civil engineer, like from your background. So, and I think are you still a part-time civil engineer?
Still a part-time civil engineer,
Okay, cool. So your parents must have been very happy back in the day. And then you said, I'm going to make content on the internet. How did they react to that Pakistani parent life?
Oh man, I'm very, very lucky that I have very supportive parents.
Respect.
And so when I first told them, they were kind of like, can you really make money from this? And, and, I have a wife, I have a kid. And so they're like, are you sure about this? And then I was like, well, I'm not fully quitting civil engineering yet. I'm still going to be part-time. And then I showed them some of the checks that were coming in from some of these brand deals. And they're like, oh my God.
They're like, you need to quit. Yeah, exactly. That's amazing, man. Oh, that is, we'll go later in the show, like into that moment as well, transitioning, because I think that is something that a lot of people struggle with, like leaving their job or even going part-time. I think is an interesting option for a lot of people. But that's really cool. You've got that background. But what about the TikTok side? Because you're also, killing it on there. You're also posting them obviously on Instagram. I'm assuming you started on TikTok and then started posting more stuff on Instagram later, right?
Yeah. So like my journey with TikTok is so interesting. I remember when I first downloaded it, 2019, I think it was September of 2019. I was vacationing in Italy with my wife. We were in Italy. And on the flight over, I was listening to a Gary Vee podcast. I was a big Gary Vee guy back in the day. And he was talking about this app called TikTok. It's like, hey, if you ever just wanted to make content, try TikTok. And I've always had like this itch of making content. You know, like I'm 31 years old. I kind of grew up in like the YouTube era of like people making YouTube channels and like the old school days of like Smosh and all those things. And I'm like, I want to do content as well, but I was always a little bit too, I guess, self-conscious to make content back in the day when I was 18, 19, 20. Like it wasn't cool to be a content creator. So I downloaded TikTok, and you know, you have some downtime when you're on vacation, like, you know, you're waking up downtime scrolling through TikTok. I'm like, this is pretty cool. This is in Italy, right? And so we get back over to the States, and I'm like, I'm just gonna try posting some stuff. And I had zero expectations of what to do. I was just goofing off because, you know, like none of my friends were on TikTok. TikTok was still very, very new. The pandemic hadn't happened
People were
yet.
just doing dances back then, right? Like
People
it was
were
very
doing dances,
musically
yes.
style, like because there was the musically takeover or whatever. I think that was a big part of the culture of it. But yeah, that, and a lot of people even today still think that's what it is. They don't realize it's people like you doing stock market, economy,
Right.
business stuff. Like my feed has got, like, there's so many positive things on there.
Absolutely.
And we can come to that in a little while. But yeah, so back to you goofing off. And so the first one you made, was that in Italy, or you can't
No,
come back by then?
The first one was in Italy. It was just me like walking around the Amalfi Coast, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just like, oh, check out the Amalfi Coast. Just like no voiceover, just like a music playing in the background, and just like some like landscape shots of it, and just like it did 5,000 views. And again, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I have literally 0 followers. How did this even get 5,000 views? I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. But didn't think much of it. I was like, okay, whatever.
It got you with that dopamine hit, yeah? Early
yes,
on.
absolutely. It got me with the
Yeah.
dopamine. And so as I started using TikTok a little bit more, just as a consumer, you know, like 75% of the stuff was dances, but I got lucky where I got shown some funny comedy skits, which really reminded me of, oh my God, what's the name of the app back in the day? The 6 second app.
One? Yeah.
I'm like,
sorry, when you said it, I thought of the same thing, and my
Right.
brain went fuzzy as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's the
Twitter ended
Twitter,
up buying
the
them.
Twitter one.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm like, this reminds me of like, you know, of that back in the day. And I'm like, I've always wanted to do like funny sketch videos like that, you know? So I, again, just started goofing off. I started making funny videos, and I'm like, I need to find.
Sorry, it was
like,
called Vine, by the way.
Vine. Thank you.
Vine,
Thank
there
you.
you go.
Vine.
I
Yes.
Googled
Vine
it.
was
Yeah, go.
goated.
Yeah.
And so I started doing like Vine style videos where I'm just like going back and forth, just doing like funny videos. And I ended up like wanting to do videos about stuff that I was passionate about, which was always like finance news, tech news. And so I remember my very first viral video was I did a funny reenactment of Facebook copying Snapchat stories feature, and just like doing like played the character of Mark Zuckerberg, played the character of Evan Spiegel, posted that like on a Sunday night, expecting nothing. Probably spent less than 15, 20 minutes on it. Like the lighting's bad. The video's still up on my feed, by the way. And like, I think overnight it had 100,000 views. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Getting ready for work
crazy.
the next day. I'm like, honey, I just got 100,000 views on TikTok. I think I just added like 1,000 followers.
That's crazy. And
she's
wait,
like,
so
okay.
how many followers did you have at the time? Do you
Zero.
remember?
I think literally zero,
so
maybe like 1 or 2. Yeah.
Wow. And this is when, I mean, you can still do this on TikTok, but if you're doing this early on, there weren't many people creating the sort of content you're talking about.
Right.
So it just popped off.
Yeah, it was a funny video, and it was like in like the style of TikTok, and it worked, and it popped off, and it did great. So I just started, after work, just started doing videos, like 2 or 3 videos a week, and most of them would do well. I would get 100,000, a couple 100,000 followers are starting to go up. I'm not thinking of like this ever becoming anything besides like this is just really fun. I was doing civil engineering at the time, and I really wanted a creative outlet. And that's what TikTok was for me. It was like, okay, I get to make content. It's fun. I'm like interacting with people. I'm not thinking that I'm ever going to like turn this into a job or anything beyond just a creative outlet. But I keep doing it. Pandemic happens in 2020. World shuts down. And it gave me more time to make content. And everybody gets on TikTok, right? Everybody gets on TikTok. I start doing more content there. And that's kind of where the story picks up. I gain momentum, gain followers. And then like near the end of 2020, like brands are hitting me up like, hey, would you want us to sponsor you? And that's when I'm like, oh my God, this actually might be something where I can
actually
like
make a living,
make some money. Yeah. Well, not even like a living, but I was just like, maybe I can just turn it into a side hustle. Maybe I can make an extra 10, 20 grand, 30 grand a year from this.
You were doing it for free anyway, right? That was kind of the key point.
Absolutely.
I like the way you use the word goofing off. I'll come back to that later. And having fun. Because I mean, if anyone who's seen your videos, I told my editor you're coming on, and he was like, "Oh man, I love his videos. I can't wait to do this one," because it's just like, I mean, he does a lot of short form stuff too, so he follows that world quite closely. And just, yeah, you can see that coming out in your videos. And it's like, even like Callaway, who I just had on 2 episodes ago, who I know you follow his stuff, Kyle.
Absolutely.
Very different style. And as we'll get into later, very different approach as well. Like even the way his is super highly produced. Yours are highly produced too, but there's a different style in yours. And you do the kind of acting out, like you said, a lot of the time, playing characters. And what I love about that is just, it's clearly... like that's authentic to the way you are, right? Like I want to know a bit more about this because it doesn't sound very civil engineering to me, but because again, I'm judging from the outside without knowing any civil engineers, right? But civil engineer, you think of like a very structured, rational, you know, like the opposite of creativity in a way, but in a way there is, I'm sure, lots of creativity involved in that job too. But just really curious to dig into that. Did you like doing skits and stuff with your friends? Did you ever do theater at school? Like, did that part come out early on?
I never did theater in school or anything like that. I was always a little too shy to ever like be in front of like a crowd like that. Back, you know, when I was in high school, you're insecure, right? In high school, 18 years old. But I always enjoyed doing, like, we would have like class video projects. And I would always take the lead on that. So I was like, okay, I have the camera, I'll do the editing. And I would always, I would love doing that stuff for class projects. And I would always try to make sure like I would try to write the scripts for those as well. You know, and so I always had like a passion for it. I mean, even when I remember when I was 18, I wanted to do like I started a YouTube channel. I'm like, I want to do this. But you know, it just when you're that young, you don't really know like if it's okay to do things like that. You're always just like, oh, I need to focus on like becoming an engineer or whatever the case is.
The real job in air quotes, you know?
Yeah, you know, again, it wasn't cool. I'm talking like 2009, 2010. It wasn't cool to do internet stuff. It wasn't cool to be a creator. It's cool to do that now because we have people like Mr. Beast and things like that who are like making it cool. But back then it wasn't. So, but I always had a passion for it. I always like liked doing that stuff. Like the biggest example of that is just the class projects. Whenever we had a video class project, we were filming it at my house. I was gonna have all the scripts. We were gonna go to like Goodwill and get the different outfits. Like I was doing it all, and I was editing it together. And I love doing that stuff. So it made sense.
That example, man.
Yeah, and so I just found it really easy and natural for me to be like, okay, well now with TikTok, they made it so easy to create content. It didn't have to be highly produced because YouTube had like that high production quality like hurdle that everyone was, you know, that everyone's kind of afraid to overcome. But at TikTok, you didn't have to do that. You can just like goof off and you can just make it funny and like you can do it using your phone. And that's what I liked about it. And I think I went in there. I think the biggest thing for me was I got 2 things that were huge for me in the beginning. Number 1, I found early successes. Even like the early hint of just a video going somewhat
that helps
viral.
A lot, right? Yeah.
It felt so good. And it made me want to keep doing it. I think
like if something's working here.
Right. And I think if I did like 10 videos and all of them flopped, maybe I wouldn't have been motivated. But doing doing 3 or 4 videos and having like 2 of them get even like 5,000 or 10,000 views, I'm like, okay, well this it feels good. And then the other thing was I knew that nobody in my immediate family or my friends group or anyone was on TikTok to where they could see me and like judge me.
Oh, that's interesting.
There was nobody on it.
That's very interesting. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I definitely want to come back to that because that is, like I had a whole section later on about getting out of your head because that is probably the biggest hurdle for anyone not doing a lot of things, to be honest, but also specifically content creation because it's that same underlying feeling of like, what will people think? And especially it's like interesting you said as a kid, you don't really have that, right? Because you're kind of just, well, maybe when you're like 18, it's different to when you're 12.
Right,
like if you're or 9, like you don't really think about it. You're just kind of living as a kid.
Exactly.
When you're 18, you're a little bit more self-conscious. You're trying to get girls to like you or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, what am I going to look like the cool kid, or am I looking like a geek, like doing all this stuff online? And
exactly.
and that is actually one of the hardest things for a lot of us who put anything on the internet is. And I don't even do TikTok stuff, right? Like even just a voice on an audio podcast is different. But still, you get like comments, right? You get that 1 out of 1,000 comments that is negative, and they're like, oh, that person sounds like this, or oh, they say this word too much, or whatever it is, right? And that is the hardest obstacle for a lot of people because that is the part where you will stop and you then stop compounding essentially, right? And I've had that even with this podcast. Like I've had not necessarily, I haven't really stopped the podcast because of that, but I've had that with other things I've done in the past where I kind of outgrew it for a while, and then it was like, oh, is this even worth my time? Like, for example, the Arsenal website, you've heard me talk about it 100 times. Like, that's something I've been sitting on for a while that I did literally as a 16-year-old. Didn't think about it. Like you said, no one I knew was reading it at first. It was just into a blog. Right. Strangers on the internet found it, and it kind of grew its own life. And then eventually, when it had a bit of success, I'll tell my friends at school, oh, by the way, you're an Arsenal fan, you might like reading this too. But when you're now established and you've got all your network and people who know you for one thing, that is an honest take, right? Like, it is very difficult to get out of your head on some of those things. So, I mean, since we're talking about it, I'm curious, how did you deal with that? And specifically with the lens, you mentioned your parents. Mm-hmm. And I'm just asking this because we're both Pakistani. Absolutely. There is a specific thing with that too, because there are some, you know, you've seen the Hassan Minhaj comedy special there probably, where he's talked about that phrase, "Log kya kenge," or exactly. What will people say? Mm-hmm. Essentially, that's kind of the translation. And everyone has that, but specifically in our culture, like that is a massive thing, right? So I'm curious if that was something you struggle with.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, right? But I think I got over that pretty quickly. So again, I started blowing up on TikTok. I was like, what? So 2019, I was 28 years old, right? So I was like 28 at the time, wife and kids, so relatively secure in my own skin at the time. And I was starting to have success. So then I'm like, even with a little bit of success, then I was like, okay, I don't care who knows. Like, I'm like, I'm cool. I'm gonna do this. I don't care who knows. Yeah. It feels good. I was telling my parents, and it was great. But I think I only felt that way after I had that success. I think the biggest fear at that age was I didn't want to fail and other people to know about it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think as soon as I saw a little bit of success, I was like, oh man, I
awesome. Want to show off about this.
Yeah. I was like, I love this is great. Like, and then you know, once TikTok started to become more popular, people approach me like, hey, like I saw you're on TikTok. Like, this is really cool. Like, tell me more about it. Because I think everybody wants to do it. Yeah. But nobody wants to put themselves out there, right?
Yeah.
And so I felt comfortable doing that, you know, after I found a little bit of success, and it only took like 2 or 3 months for me to just, you know, be more open about it and telling my friends about it. And you know, just I think you can do that once you have a little bit of like success, but momentum. Also like the security. Yeah, and momentum.
Yeah, completely. Security. Love that. And so we should actually tell people, so I didn't mention this up front, but you've got almost 400,000 followers on TikTok now. As of this morning, about 390. I bet by the time this goes out, you'll hopefully have hit the 400K already. Yeah. Over 15 million likes. I can see that. Do you have any idea roughly how many views you've had? Because you've probably seen it in analytics or.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be over 100. I know it's over 100 million. I haven't checked it recently.
Incredible.
But yeah, it's over 100 million, which it's just kind of cool to think about.
That is insane, right? I mean, just the scale of, like you even said, the first video got like, what was it, 5,000 views?
Yeah.
Which is like, again, for people who've never created something on, like, let's say YouTube, you most of the time you're never getting 5,000 views on the first. I mean, like, I don't even get that for stuff I've done for ages, and it's just a completely different beast, right? And so let's talk about that though, because I think that does actually really help the people putting stuff on TikTok. Like you said, that early momentum encourages you to keep going in a certain direction, and that allows you to then hone your skills, getting more reps, all the things we know that help you become successful in doing that. And I think TikTok partly does that because they're smart. Like literally, if you create a new account, you normally get a little boost right in the beginning. Absolutely. And then secondly, the big change is like the For You page, the interest graph versus the social graph, which is what we've had primarily on Instagram and Facebook before. Now everyone's kind of moved to interest graph because TikTok has kind of led the way in that.
Changed the game.
And so what would happen is for your video will get in front of new people from day one versus just your friends. And so that was a big change. So was there anything else on the TikTok side that I think really helped? Because I think you mentioned the music. I also think like the style of it being just kind of fun. Yeah. Like it kind of encourages that fun. But is there anything else I'm kind of missing there?
No, I think it was like the ease of creation was huge, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
you
that's
didn't
a big
have to
one.
have a fancy camera. You didn't have to have perfect quality. I mean, if you scroll all the way down to my early videos, like the quality is so bad. Like the lighting's not, I'm not even using a ring light. But it didn't matter. I mean, at least back in the day. I think now it's starting to matter a little bit more. But still, but compared to YouTube or even Instagram, I don't think it matters as much. You can still, it's all about the content. It's all about like the pure content. Is it engaging? Is it funny? Is it educational? Which is great, right? Because it lowers the barrier to entry. You don't have to worry about like, oh, like, is my lighting perfect? Is my audio perfect? Is my camera a $700 camera? It can be your phone. It could be an iPhone 6 for all that matters, right? And as long as your content is good, people will hopefully show up because of how good the algorithm is. Now, over time, it's gotten harder and harder, as with any social platform. There's more creators competing for attention. So it definitely is much harder now than it was 2 years ago, even a year ago. But I still think at its core, like, if you make good content, TikTok will put it in front of the right audience.
Yeah, love that, man. So we're going to do a whole deep dive in a second about your process, how you create videos, recording, even editing. I think you're going to open up Descript and show us, because that was different to what Callaway showed us with Adobe. But let's talk about the civil engineering thing for a second, because again, like, paint a picture of what that life is like doing a hybrid now and making that decision to leave, or not to fully leave, but to go part-time, because I'm assuming you were full-time at some point, right?
Right. I was. So the story behind that is, so I was, picking back up on the story that I was telling earlier. I was making TikToks just for fun all of 2020. The world shut down. We're all working from home. 2020, and then latter half of 2020, my company called everybody back in. I'm starting to go into the office more, and then the moment where it was like where I knew that I needed to like start taking it a lot more seriously, was take the content more seriously, was at early 2021 when the whole GameStop stuff happened, right? If you remember that whole fiasco, GameStop and Robinhood and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, I think we did it on the pod as well. Yeah.
Yep. And so I remember I had a couple brand deals then, not a lot of money, but there was like a couple affiliate brand deals, right? And I remember I did a video. So the GameStop stuff happens. I'm at work. GameStop news story breaks where Robinhood suspends trading of GameStop. I go into my car during my lunch break, and I just make a video, like a rant video. And it wasn't even like a typical style video. It was just a rant video.
I love this is in your car. That's so funny.
It was in my car because I couldn't do it at the office, right? Like, my people at work knew that I was doing content, but they thought I was like this goofy guy doing content. But I go into the office, I go into my car in the parking lot, do the video, and next thing I know, it like blows up. I think it's like 1 million views in like an hour. And I had an affiliate link in my bio, which I almost kind of forgot about. That video was somewhat tangentially related to, like, it was like a link for Public, the investing app, which I was partners with at the time. It resulted in like $20,000 of affiliates coming to me in like a day.
No way. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. How many views did that video get? Do you remember?
Total, I don't know, but I remember like I looked at it, about an hour or two, and I'm like, it has over 1 million views. Oh my God.
Oh my God. What, in a few hours? That's insane. In a few hours. So
it was just fresh.
And it was it was fresh, and you just did it in the cars. I've heard that so many times from people, where the one that really popped off first was just this. It just was in your head. You had to let it out, right? Like, it was so exactly. You were out of your head. You weren't overthinking the script or anything. You were no script. This just happened. This is how I'm going to explain it. Wow, that is incredible. So you made 20 grand in a day, which, again, whatever you're happy to share. Again, knowing a rough salary for a civil engineer is a good salary, but like you probably don't make 20 grand in a day being a civil engineer, I take it.
Yeah, my salary, I think at the time was like 100, 105, 110 ish a year. And
which, so again, good salary, but that's salary. 1/5 of your year's salary was made in one day from a video you made. And that is crazy. Okay.
Exactly. So that happens, and I'm like, oh my God. So that was in January, I believe, January of 2021. And I'm like, okay, I gotta I'm like, I can do this. My content's pretty good. I need to start thinking about how I can transition to a role where I can do more content. So I started looking for some jobs, and I was ultimately able to find a civil engineering company to work part-time. They needed someone, and they were okay with me working part-time. I went into it telling them, hey, look, I have this passion. I'm making content. and I want this to be my full-time career down the line, long term. I can help you, working part-time. And they were cool with it. And I'm still working with them today. And they're fantastic. I love working with them, love working for them. And so I moved over there. I moved to another company. And so they freed up my time to do more content in 2021. And that was like the perfect time. I mean, if you remember 2021, it was ZERP season, man. It was nuts. I mean, it was crypto season. Everything was just going nuts.
The best time to be doing it, yeah.
Absolutely.
And for people that don't know, zero interest rate phenomenon, right? So that's right. That's what we all went through 2020, 2021. Crazy NFTs, crypto popping off, meme stocks, basically all the crazy stuff that happens when there was 0% interest rates and the liquidity that was in the market. So that was a crazy time. And just really quickly, I just want to make sure, I'm sure a lot of people listening know this already, but you mentioned affiliate link. I do want to just clarify for people. So that means you didn't get paid to just post. It wasn't like a pay for this one video necessarily. It was if someone clicks my link to go into public, signs up, you get paid sign up amount.
I think it was $35 for a new account, and so like 700 people signed up because of the video.
700 is insane for one day.
I think it's because people were so pissed off at Robinhood, and I think in my video I was like, if you want an alternate to Robinhood, check out Public. And because I was already using them, and it just drove the traffic, and I did not expect. I mean, I had zero expectations. And I remember I just driving home that day. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane.
That's insane. Yeah, that's amazing. And I think a lot of people, kind of see content creators online and they don't necessarily even know how to make money. I think the obvious one is those brand deals. So we'll come back to that on the monetization front. But I did want to just clarify for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what an affiliate deal is. That's crazy, bro. So I do want to hear. Let's get into the actual content creation process, though. Okay. And actually, sorry, one last thing I do want to say. I think your example of going and finding another gig, essentially, to do the part-time, to now focus on it, is such a smart thing that so many people should be doing, if that's what they want to do long-term, right? A lot of people just do this either-or thing. It's like, I'm going full-time or I'm not. And I feel like there's too much of this black and white advice given online. Like they're like, oh, like even what I do essentially, like I have a small consultancy business marketing, and I won't necessarily say how much of the week I work on it, but it's a few days a week, let's say. Right? I'm not going to say actual hours because I don't have defined hours because it's based on my own business. Right, so that's close to what you're doing in a way. Yours is like, how much you're going to work a week, and then you can dedicate the other days to content creation, doing stuff with family, whatever you choose to do. But it also takes that defensive nature away from you, because you're covered. Like you can pay your rent, your mortgage, you can make sure your kid's okay. Right. Everyone's got their stuff sorted. And for a certain type of person, that's what you need. Like I did it for a few months from when I left my last job. I think I did 3 months and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I did Creator Lab hard. I did it in studio, in person, loved doing it. But I'd come home and I'd be like, man, I really need to make this work. Right. And you just see your savings going down. Oh man. I'm still spending $5,000 a month or whatever it is on rent and like living in New York. And I was like, man, this is not like maybe I'll do that again in the future. But at that stage, it wasn't the right balance. And now when I switched doing it the other way, it just gave me that freedom to say, okay, I know what I'm doing. I appreciate that. And now I can just have fun with the other stuff. And it can just fit into my life,
I think that's an excellent point. And I think, me working part-time, I think is huge for me. And I think, well, first of all, I had a wife and kid, right? So I think if I was like 19 or 20 or 21, I would have quit my job or whatever corporate job I had, and I would have gone all in on content. I just couldn't do that just because of where I was in life. Like my daughter at the time was like 2 years old. We had just bought a house. Like it was just like my risk tolerance was a lot lower than like a 22-year-old that's straight out of college that blew up on TikTok. So I had to do that. But also, and we'll get into this, we can get into this in a little bit, but like me still working as a civil engineer, I think is ultimately going to be a huge advantage for me moving forward, because what I really ultimately want to do is I love making finance content. I'm going to continue doing that, but I've learned so much on the content stuff and the media stuff, and it makes me realize like I can apply those skills to an untapped industry like civil engineering. And I think that's ultimately where I can make like an actual business that's not just me making TikToks, but like an actual business around it. But we can get into that in a little bit.
That's a really good point, actually. Well, I mean, I guess since we are talking about it, I'm curious what that looks like to you. You mean like a company that's helping other civil engineers, or is it a civil engineering company that's got like a media arm as their face, the way Andreessen Horowitz tries to, differentiate with content-led approach? I'm just curious, like what you think about when you say that.
So when I think about it is, you hear about all these B2B newsletters and B2B media companies, and there's really nothing like that in like the civil engineering space. Specifically, like what I do is I do water plants and wastewater plants. And so there's really nothing in there except for like old trade magazines that like nobody under the age of 35 reads.
Oh yeah.
There's no like newsletter. There's no media or content that's addressing civil engineers that are either young in their career or even like experienced ones like myself that want to be up to date on what's happening in the industry. So there's so much opportunity there to like bring digital media. Yeah, I think it's huge, and you're addressing a high income audience as well. And so I think that like I've learned so much in the content side, short form content. I've gotten to the newsletter space. I've built so many great connections of just, the network has grown because of my TikToks. So I think ultimately what I want to do is apply everything that I've learned as a finance content creator and use those skills and bring it to like civil engineering, whether it's how to make high engaging short form content, how to bring that audience to a newsletter, how to convert that newsletter audience to whether it's a continuing educational course for engineers, because that's huge for engineers. They have to keep continuing education as part of their licensing. There's so many opportunities there. And I feel like now the joke I was making to my wife is like, I'm probably the only civil engineer in the world that like knows short form content the way I do.
It's true. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think literally just the numbers kind of speak for themselves in this way, because like to already be a civil engineer is hard, right? Like a lot of people don't even get through to that process.
Right.
Once you've done that, it's also hard to do content creation at that level where you've got hundreds of thousands of people following you, millions of views. So just that intersection is really unique. So that actually brings us on to that next kind of area. And so we'll get into the nuts and bolts of creating, but I want to talk a bit about that idea of like, the bullet point I have here is like topics you cover, but really it's about how do you differentiate yourself? How do you come up with that in the first place of these are the types of things I'm going to talk about, and these are the ways I'm going to talk about them. You've heard in our kind of world, creator economy, whatever you want to call it. I don't love that phrase, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But that world, there's a phrase called personal monopoly, which is actually quite an interesting idea. I don't know if you've heard that phrase, you've thought about it for yourself. But I do actually think, as much as it sounds like a very think boy buzzwordy thing, it's actually quite a useful idea. So yeah, how do you think about that for yourself when it comes to the topics you're going to cover?
The topics that I cover, the niche that I've found myself doing is just like the finance stuff, right? So whatever you see on the CNBCs, Wall Street Journals, Bloombergs of the world, I just take that information and translate it to
in
like
a digestible way. Yeah.
In like a way where like a normal dude who like is tangentially interested in the stock market, but isn't like, obsessing about this stuff like I would be, and try to explain it in a way which is kind of funny, relatable. And that's what I've been doing, right? Sometimes it takes a form of like a skit. I still love doing those where I'm playing multiple characters and like turning it into like a funny skit. And what I've been trying to do more and more is just like, just holding up my phone and just being like, like NVIDIA, just like reacting to like the NVIDIA earnings and just trying to make funny jokes that way and explaining what that means and why they're going up. And sometimes admitting like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, and just
It's like your friend, like the way I see it often is like your smart friend who's also entertaining, which I think is quite key. So we'll come back to that educating versus entertaining. But so if I went to dinner with you, or like we're catching up for coffee or whatever, and I was like, oh, you follow that world better than I do. So what happened with NVIDIA? I saw that in the news, but could you explain it to me? And you do it in such a succinct, entertaining way. So I think that, now hearing you describe that, that's a perfect way of describing like your interesting friend. You don't have to be the world's number one expert. And that's kind of another thing that I think a lot of people are in their head about, which is what gives me the authority to talk about stock market or whatever else topic they're interested in. So I really do love that approach, man.
I get that question a lot. It's like, wait, you're an engineer. Why are you talking about stocks and finance? I'm like, dude, if I can get through engineering school, I'm pretty sure I can understand like what's going on with finance, finance news. And I don't have to be an expert, like you don't have to be an expert to like participate in the stock market. You don't have to be an expert to understand what's going on with companies and with investing. And I think that's one of the reasons, a slight advantage that I have is like, compared to people that are like experts in the field, right? When we become experts, and I'm guilty of this when it comes to engineering, we end up trying to like impress our peers. And it's like, oh, let me tell you what all these terms mean. And like, you try to use all these fancy terms, right? To make yourself sound smarter. Because like, hey, I got a business degree. I know what I'm talking about. I never got a business degree. I'm pretty much self-taught. You can learn a lot from reading books and YouTube. And so I would say
I do have a business degree, and 99% of stuff I know is the same way you learned it, right? It's like
exactly,
it's the same stuff, man. Yeah.
So I can explain it and in a way without trying to sound sophisticated and smart, because I don't have to. Like, I'm not trying to appeal to like that base. I'm just like, I'm just like that dude at the at dinner that like just is obsessed with Tesla stock or Nvidia stock or Disney, and just like explaining it to you and in a way that like makes sense that we can have a conversation about. And I think that's been a key advantage when it comes to just me making content about finance.
Yeah, I love that, bro. Yeah, so let's get into a few examples, because I think that's normally the best way I learn. I think obviously people can check out your videos as well first. And Rafa, my editor, you could put in a few examples. He's probably already done that on the YouTube version of this. But most people are only listening, so just click through to YouTube, or in fact, click through to your TikTok channel and just explore your page first. But then come back, because we're going to be talking about actually showing how you create this from behind the scenes. So Absolutely. Like, just let's go through the whole process. Like, you just mentioned that one when you went in the car, right? Like, it was in your head and you said, well, let me just go and create a video. I even think like I don't really write much on Twitter, but the one Twitter thread that like really popped off for me, which has been pinned on my profile for ages, was I was catching up with a friend. He was talking about something and I was like, why do people not get this about this? And I came home and it was just in my head and I just wrote it fresh. I didn't edit anything. It wasn't planned. It wasn't scheduled. Right. And that one straight away resonated with people because it was just like me talking to someone. Exactly. But I'm assuming all of yours aren't like that, right? So you have different types of videos. So maybe give us an idea of the types of videos you have. You talked about the role play ones, the speaking to the camera ones, and then we can get into that process.
Yeah. So I got three main types, and it's actually I've kind of narrowed it down to two. So I got like the one which is like the sketches, right? Where it's like me taking a business story and turning it into like a comedy sketch where it's multiple characters. Some of the ones that are popular, like Big Tech Goes to Brunch, where they just recap their month or their week and just kind of talk about. And I have Apple, Amazon, Google. They're just all talking, busting balls, things like that. And it's funny, and people seem to enjoy that. And those end up taking the longest, right? Because those I'm thinking about, like I'm writing the script, I'm rewriting the script, I'm like how to make this funny, I'm shooting it, I'm reshooting it, and multiple outfits, things like that. Those end up taking the longest. So I don't do those very often, but I try to do them, at a weekly pace. So that's one bucket. The other bucket,
really quickly, how long does that video take roughly?
It can take 4 to 5 hours.
Okay, cool.
Between writing the script, filming
going to get that outfit,
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Right, so we'll cut. So that was the first type of video, role play, that really quite highly produced in that case as well.
Yeah, those that have a green screen, like I've increased the production of those videos as I've been doing this over time. So those take the longest, and in a perfect world, I try to do them every day, but it's just life happens and you can't. So I've been trying to do them every week or so. The other videos that I'm trying to do more of, because I think that there's still a huge opportunity, is just like picking up your phone and like creating a video like as if you're on FaceTime with your friend, explaining stuff. It doesn't have to be produced. It doesn't have to be scripted. It could be raw, authentic, and just off the dome, explaining or reacting to a news. And I'm trying to do those more and more, and because they don't take as long. I can bust, I can do it out in like 30 minutes. Maybe even faster sometimes, depending on how many green screen screenshots I have to do. But that could be something like reacting to Nvidia earnings. It's like, oh my God, the stock is up 9% after hours. Like, what's going on? Let's just do a quick little review of what's going on with the earnings. It could be as simple as, it could be things like that. So I'm trying to do those more and more. Like ideally, I want to get to a pace where I'm doing like 2 of those a day. I think that's doable. And the more you do those, I think the more it's just easier
you
you get.
Because I mean, at doing it, right? Yeah,
exactly. Because like even now, I'll do it. I'm like, oh, I didn't say that properly. Let me say it again. Let me re-record it. I'll take like 2 or 3 takes sometimes to do a video like that. So I'm trying to do those more a day. I think my thing is like I'm still all about volume. I think volume is the most important thing when it comes to short form content. Like it's all about volume, especially if you're starting out. And especially someone like me who's like not making super highly produced videos in general. So it's all about volume. So that's the other bucket. And the third bucket that I was doing a lot of last year, but I just haven't had the opportunity to do this year is more of the personal stuff, the more of like the vlogs behind the scenes. So I was doing vlogs showing like this is the day in the life of a part-time civil engineer / content creator.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I was
I've
like
seen those. Yeah.
doing the voiceovers and taking people through the field and taking people through my day and like trying to show some of like, you know, being a dad, being a husband. And I love making those, but those, I think that the downside for those is it sometimes would take me out of the moment. Because I'm always thinking like, okay, what's the video going to be like? What's the theme for the video? What, you know, where should I put my camera?
That's a good point.
And so I was able to do those for a while, but then I'm like, I wasn't able to keep up with it. And it just became a mental burden to do those. I want to bring them back. But
that's a great point. I haven't even thought about that. Just like, especially the one you said with your family, like in that moment, you kind of want to put your phone away. You kind of want to just be there, enjoy that properly. And so maybe the work ones a little like a behind the scenes as part-time civil engineer or creator, like what it's like kind of what we're doing today, like showing the behind the scenes a little bit, I think is really interesting. But I think that's an important distinction, or like kind of the boundaries you have around like why you're doing this all in the first place is to be able to spend time with them. So you kind of want to make sure, well, maybe it's not just that, but you know, a big part of it I'm sure is as well. So that's a great point.
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, you know, I was able to do it, and it just becomes too much of a mental burden. I'm like playing basketball with my daughter, but I'm also kind of like, oh, is the camera recording? Maybe I can like get this. You know, it just became too much of a burden. And then I'm editing them, and I just, you know, I just couldn't find the right balance. There's a lot of great creators who do some fantastic vlogs on TikTok. Tim is one of them. I don't know if you know Tim. I can't pronounce his last name, but I'll send you a link to him. He does really awesome vlogs.
Do you know how to spell the last name if people want to?
It's CHI. It's like Tim.
Okay.
I just call him Tim C.
Tim C. Okay. Yeah, send it to me after or something. We can include a link or something.
His vlogs are just fantastic, man. He's so inspirational. Yeah. But I can never get to that level, and so I was just like, maybe I'll just pause those. But actually, it's me doing those vlogs that end up getting the highest engagement and the highest connection with the audience, is because they get a chance to see like the real you. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't know you were a civil engineer. Like, let me learn more about your life, what you're doing in the field. Tell me more about what it's like to be a dad and a content creator and an engineer. So those end up getting like, they might not get the most views, but I guarantee you they get the most engagement because people are just so interested, and like you're taking them a peek behind the curtain. And I think it was a good way to build like a deeper connection with the audience, even if it doesn't get the most views. But I think like your true fans are the ones that are going to love seeing that kind of stuff.
That's a great, I even think the people that I follow outside of you, even just other people, I watch their stuff. And like a lot of the time what gets you originally is like the useful or entertaining 1-minute videos, let's say on TikTok. And once you see enough of that, you're like, oh, I just kind of like, for example, like gym, there's a few gym people that I follow who they're like, oh, this is a correct form lifting weights, and this is like nutrition stuff, whatever. And that kind of is the reason I'm following them. But then after a while, I'm like, oh, he's got a little humor, or he's saying something here. And then after a while, you're like, oh, now he's competing in this competition. Oh, he's got a family. And it's kind of going down, I hate to use this term, but you're going down the funnel. Essentially, you're deepening that engagement. In a marketing point of view, it's going down the funnel. But in a non-robotic way, it's just, you know, you're deepening the engagement with someone. That was a question I kind of had, actually, which is what a lot of people, I think, struggle with is creating stuff that gives you that immediate dopamine hit of this one banged, it went viral, I got 1 million views, whatever, versus what you actually want to create. And that isn't always the same thing, right? And sometimes there's an overlap, but I think it's like any sort of content creation. It's not just content creation, it's anything really, any work related stuff anyway. It's basically the incentive you have, right? And it's like here, it is that is the most immediate thing you can react to because there's an actual number that's easy to see.
Exactly.
It's harder to say how many people enjoyed this enough that like they made their day better. Like that's a different thing, right? Maybe you can look at like retention rate as an actual number metric, but like unless you spoke to those people, that's the qualitative side you don't get to see. And then there's like the personal stuff too, right? It's like, oh, I enjoyed that process of creating this. And that is a really interesting balance. So I'm curious, how do you balance that? Because I also think the way you're doing it with the part-time job helps mitigate that, because when you're all, oh, I need to make money from this primarily as my primary income, then you end up that is your incentive, right? It becomes the priority. So how do you balance figuring that out?
That's like the challenge, right? I mean, I always try to lean to do stuff that makes me happy, right? Like I knew that those vlogs were doing great, but I just knew that like it wasn't great for me, like mentally. So I always try to do things that make me happy, and not just only focus on the metrics. That's like easier said than done. I mean, you know, it's great when like you do a certain type of video and it's like, oh my God, I got 2 million views. I should probably do that again.
Of course.
And so I try to find like a right balance. I'm like, okay, the skits and the comedy sketches, they do the best. So I'll try to sprinkle those in once a week or so. And okay, so I'll serve the audience. It's kind of like when actors, you know, like in Hollywood, like there's a saying of like one for them, one for me. So you do like one movie that's like an action movie that's gonna pay all your bills, and then you do one like indie film that's for you. I kind of try to do it that way, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make content that's gonna make my audience happy and make me happy as well. But then I'm going to do one that I just want to do for myself, whether it's like, you know, just an off the cuff kind of video, or maybe, you know, whatever the case is. So I try to find the right balance.
That's a good that's a good rule actually. Cause I think a lot of it is, that's a tangible thing you can actually take from it, right? Like, and a lot of these things you can just look at people who've been doing creative work for a long time, and this is just a new form of creative work.
Absolutely.
And that's a great analog there. The one you just said there before, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Mr. Beast, because like I think Mr. Beast, what he does is incredible, right?
Insane.
Like it's insane what he's done in that world. He's the number one YouTuber. He's pretty much the number one media outlet, if you can call it that, in the world, even though a lot of people listen to this might not even watch his stuff. I don't actually watch most of his stuff.
I don't either.
But I know I follow him on like the business side to be like, oh, that's really cool what you're doing. But that is actually something I've thought a lot about, because I listen to a lot of comedians and I'm really fascinated by their process, like what gets them going. As someone who is like, I would say I have a creative soul as well, right? Like I'm a very like rational, numbers driven business person on one side, but like deep down, I've always been a creative person as well. Right. And I think you've clearly got that yourself. And sometimes when I hear Mr. Beast talk about it, it kind of like, I don't want to say annoys me, because he's allowed to do what he wants to do, right? And I respect it. But he's like, oh, that hurts retention. Don't do that. And I'm like, well, yeah, but if your whole thing just becomes about what gets 100 million views, you're now a slave to the YouTube algorithm or whatever it is, right? And
I will say it, Mr. Beast ruined YouTube. I mean, I think, you know, seriously.
Okay.
I have a lot of respect for Mr. Beast. This is like my most passionate, like hot take that I have about the creator economy, whatever it is. I think Mr. Beast is an incredible businessman. His work ethic is insane. I'm not talking crap about Mr. Beast. But yeah, like the way he talks about content is like annoying to me. I'm like, dude, like what? You don't have to like have 100 different zooms, boom, 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 crazy text in your face. Like that's like soul sucking, man. And it's like, I've seen some of his content and I'm like, oh, like everything is like optimized for 100% retention. It's like, dude, you're like a drug dealer now. I'm like, you're just a drug dealer giving people more and more potent drugs to get their attention. And I think
that's a fair point. Yeah.
And I think Mr. Beast, just everyone is now copying Mr. Beast's style. It's all about like, even TikToks now, like it's all about like big text and just like zoom and then cha-ching and boom, explosions. And I'm just like, dude, stop. Like this is just takes away the soul of like what it is to create. And maybe I'm just a boomer. Maybe I'm just wrong when it comes to this. And everyone's like, no, dude, that's the game. If you can't play the game, don't play the game. Then fine, I understand. But I don't want to play that game. I never want to play that game of like just having to hyper optimize everything for every millisecond of attention. And I'm like, this is terrible. Why would you want to create like this? You're completely at the mercy of the algorithm. And I think
it's a fair point. Yeah, go ahead.
I think you said, I think you might have watched the same interview as me, but I saw Hassan Minhaj talk about this in an interview. I think it was with Colin and Samir, maybe about a year ago. And he was like,
yeah, I think I did see that. Yeah.
I think he said this almost exact same thing where it's like, if you're constantly hyper optimizing for the algorithm, you're just a slave to the engineer who's working in Mountain View, California, and you're just doing whatever they want you to do. And that's, like that. I don't want to do that. If I have to do that, then I don't want this to be like a career then. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would rather make less money and still make money from engineering or whatever the case is and not play that game.
No, I think that's a fair point. And I think I agree with everything you said. The only thing I'd say differently is if Mr. Beast wants to do that and he genuinely likes doing that, good for him. And I'm sure you would agree with that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's more a personal thing of, like, I think especially when everyone's just following, copying and pasting essentially what he does. And so it's like, there's a sliding scale. It's like everyone is optimizing to a certain extent, but why are you doing this in the first place? And that's kind of what, even on my tiny scale with a little podcast I have, that is exactly what I keep coming back to. Is like, why was I doing this in the first place? And I've done this for like 6, 7, I did it since 2015. I recorded my first episode, put it out in 2016. And I've done it on and off. I've done it through several different jobs. It's like made me move to a new job. Now I do it partly full time as well. And so, but then I kept coming back to, well, why am I doing that in the first place? And I had written out like from, I think 2014 or 15 when I first was thinking about doing it. And the reason I started doing it was because I love talking to interesting people. That was the core of why I've done it before podcasting in my own personal life. And that was the original idea. It's like, I'm already having these interesting conversations with people. What if I just shared it with people? I bet people could like enjoy it as well. And that is always got to be there for me. And I think the reason why I've always had so much respect for someone like Joe Rogan, you can think whatever you think about Joe Rogan, he's become a political figure for some reason. But what I love about what he does is he just lives his life not optimizing for money, though he's very rich. He literally still, now he owns a comedy club, and he previously would be going to comedy, you know, what's it called? Comedy store in LA every week, working on his craft because he loved doing that. He did martial arts. He did MMA, commentary. He did his podcast speaking to the most interesting people in the world for 4 hours when everyone said you should be doing that for 45 minutes max. And he's like, well, I don't want to do that. And I'm going to choose that path. And that to me has always been such a good model because ultimately, like, you can make more or less money, and you do need to make money. That's important. But if you're only doing it because it's going to optimize and get a few more clicks or a few more views, then that's the game you're now playing versus the creative game, which is why most of us do it deep down. We're doing it because we enjoy that creative process and, of course, the results and the money that comes from it. But if you don't enjoy the process of doing it, like, what was the point in the first place, you know? So I think that's a really good point.
You're so right on, Bilal, because I was thinking, sometimes I feel this way, and now it's not like I'm complaining, but sometimes I'm like, being a creator as a job, like this being a job, sometimes it takes the fun out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because
completely,
you're constantly having to worry about money. You're constantly having to be like, sometimes it does take the fun out of it. I still love creating, but having to worry about the money side of things and having to worry about like, oh, is it everything optimized for maximum reach because maximum reach results maximum opportunity and all these different things. Yeah, I'm just like, there's an element of it when it became my job to do this and earn money from it. I'm like, sometimes I just like have to take a step back. And like, sometimes there'll be periods where I'm just like, you know what? Not feeling it. I'm just going to have to stop for a couple weeks.
That's important to hear for a lot of people, man, because I think that's the side you don't really get to see, right? Like, you're only seeing what you're posting on TikTok or whatever. So I think that I feel exactly the same way. Like, I still have so much fun doing this because I now have basically said I will post when I want to post. I know that's not optimized for views and downloads or whatever, but I accept that downside, you know what I mean? And when I did I was doing it every week, like high production, researching people, 8-10 hours doing in studio, and that was great. I'm really proud of those episodes. But now I get to have fun and talk to you about something. I still did prepare several hours, right, listening to your stuff and like, but I've also been following you for some time, so it makes it a lot easier. And that's kind of the filter I have. And the reason I brought up Joe Rogan was because that was a question he got asked, was how do you select the people that come on the show? And he basically, it was such a simple answer. It was just like, oh, I just think like, do I want to have a conversation with this person or not? And it sounds so obvious, but that is actually the crux of like hours of thinking, or like tens of hours of like analyzing all the variables without him necessarily even realizing. Because he can obviously think through, oh, is this going to get more views or not? Is this going to cause controversy? Is this going to be covered by New York Times? Is this going to be whatever? And he didn't. He just was like, I'm going to record with a bunch of friends. We're going to do MMA as well. It's not in this perfect little niche when everyone's telling you need to be like, you know, this specific thing. So I'm just going to do it because I enjoy doing it. And that's why I personally do respect those types of creative people the most. I'm not even using the word creator, but like a creative person. And I think that's why the stand-up comedians to me specifically, especially when they get quite successful, they stand out to me so much because they don't need to do the comedy clubs anymore.
Right, exactly. Right?
And I've talked about like Andrew Schultz on here a few times. I actually just saw him.
Oh, he's the
New
GOAT.
York. Yeah, he's great. And I saw him on Monday in the Comedy Cellar. And like, again, half the people there don't know who he is. They don't know he has literally the biggest like comedy podcast, or one of the biggest ones, the biggest Patreon, touring the world, selling out theaters everywhere. And he comes on, and I could tell he's working on that next special. And he told some jokes where he literally reacted and said, oh, that was a good reaction for the 8 o'clock show. And I'm like, oh, he loves doing it. Like, he's doing it. He's working so hard. And that to me is always... like, I've respected those people the most because I know how hard it is to do it, you know? So
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I love seeking out, like, comedians to me, especially like that. I'm just like, I love seeing like them still grind. They don't have to, and just do it for the love of the game. Like, do it because they actually genuinely enjoy creating, and it's not just clicks or numbers or whatever. And ultimately, that's where I want to get to. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't quit my job. That's one of the reasons why I quit my job fully. And that's another reason why I ultimately, my ultimate goal is to not have to rely on my content creation as my source of income. Yeah. Because I think that'll just free up more creativity and remove any sort of stress or pressure. And it can just go back to becoming a side gig kind of thing. But, you know, it's just great to hear that as well from your side. Yeah, no, I think I didn't really even plan for us to talk about this, but it came up. And I think it's actually a really important discussion because, again, I feel like a lot of people just think there's one way of doing it. I have to create a course. I have to send people to newsletter, which, again, is fine. If, like, you want to do that, I'm not against it. It's just there's a time and a place for doing that. And I respect it a lot if you make it successful, because people have paid for something that you created, and I also respect that as much as anything. But there's that creative part where I feel like a lot of people get sucked in, and then you never go back, and that is a hard thing to balance. They're algorithm junkies is what they are. They're algorithm junkies, and that's what it is. Yeah, completely. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's super easy to create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs. Add your job and the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Finding great talent is always at the top of the list for every entrepreneur I've had on this show, and they know that adding the right person can 10x their business, and many of them use LinkedIn Jobs for that. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs the #1 place in delivering high quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/creator. That's linkedin.com/creator to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so let's talk about the actual content. We're going to get into that in the weeds. One question before we show some examples. I mentioned it earlier, educating versus entertaining. This is a classic kind of decision that you need to make, or like it's normally a mix of both. But where do you stand on that kind of debate around where your content is? Is it primarily entertainment? Is it primarily education? Like how does that work in your head? I'd say it's 60% entertainment, 40% education
Okay,
in each video.
like
And
that.
each video will have a different percentage there. I try to lean a little bit more on the entertainment side. I feel like if you're not entertaining, it's tough to just it's tough
Yeah,
to like even stand out, right? You have to be a little bit
completely.
entertaining. And people don't want to be bored whenever they're learning or scrolling through social media or watching content, right? So I say it's probably 60%, but I always try to make it educational as much as I can.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'll just add my 2 cents here. I think when I started Creator Lab, it was so much education, and I feel like I've always had a light way of talking to people. It's conversational. There's a little humor sprinkled in, but it was not like a primarily entertaining platform, right? It was about really deep, like how do you do stuff, learning. And I have over time become a bit more the other way. Not investment advice, which is the second podcast after having some experience, was primarily about entertaining with education. It was like you can't, and that's I've changed my mind on this essentially, similar to you, which is you kind of need to earn the right to educate in a way. Like the entertainment kind of comes first. It doesn't mean you have to be a comedian, but it means you have to be fun enough to listen to, I think, if you want to hit a certain scale. And so I think that's a really nice way to think about it. But again, it comes down to the individual. Like someone is just a really good teacher, like, you know, I think that's fine too, but it's a little bit harder, I think. So let's get into a few examples. You gave those 3 types of videos earlier. I think you might even share your screen here, but why don't we talk about the process? Because from the outside, I'm assuming you have to come up with an idea for a video, which is the topic, the style of video. Then you're going to maybe write a script, or you're going to go off the dome. That's kind of like the next step. Then you're going to record it. Then you're going to edit it, and then you're going to post it. So are there any other steps I kind of missed out? But that's roughly how I thought about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the steps right there. I'm pulling up. I'm gonna share with you kind of the entire process. So I'm gonna share with you like the script,
amazing,
writing process, what I use for that. I'm gonna talk about the editing. I'll show you like the equipment that I use and everything. So
amazing. All right, let's do it. I'm just gonna shut up for a while now. So over to you.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna share you my screen here. So for my videos, for the typical skit style videos, which is what I'm kind of known for, and my best performing videos, I start off with, I have a Notion board and I just start off with like a script. So that, for example, this is the video I'm talking about my Apple earnings video. When Apple released their earnings a few weeks ago, I wanted to turn that into like a skit explaining, like the results, Apple's results, and why their stock dropped after they released their Q2 earnings. So this is the video right here. It got about almost 700,000 views. And that started off by me just, I knew what the video was going to be about. It was going to be reacting to Apple earnings. I have a little Notion page where I do all my content management and writing and stuff. And yeah, so I just have a little tab that says that's like the script, and I just start writing the script. Now this is like the final version of the script. Usually it has multiple iterations, but this is just like okay, what are the characters going to be? And then I just go. Like the first step is just doing a mind dump. I'm just like, okay, let's just do a first draft of the script, and I'm just going. I'm just writing, not even thinking too much about like how best to say a line. I'm just trying to get the rough draft in. And so I do that first, and then I go back, try to add some jokes in there, try to think of like, how to make it funnier, how to make it more educational, entertaining. And I nail down the script. Takes about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how caffeinated I am or how creative I am that day.
How long is that script usually? Do you know?
So every video, I try to make over a minute, because TikTok pays a pretty decent
over
CPM now for a minute, for a video that are longer than a minute. But I don't want to make being longer than a minute and a half, because that's what the Reels limit is. So like a Reels is supposed to be 90 seconds, even though I think they're starting to raise that now. But still, most of my videos are between 1 minute to a minute and 10, 15 seconds. So
got it. Okay.
So what
do you know how many words that is roughly?
But what I'll do is I'll copy this.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
Sorry, so I just copy this, and then there's like a word counter thing, and I'll just paste it in there, and it'll tell you how many minutes it takes to read it. So I'll just paste it in here.
Yeah. Perfect.
And then it's like, it'll take speaking time a minute, and
that's good to know. Okay.
So I'll copy that in there, and then that way I'll know, okay, well, it's over a minute. I should be good. So that's
Cool.
so that's the first thing I do is like come out with a script. Then it's filming the thing, right? So I film the thing. I have for filming, I used to use my iPhone. So I used to use my iPhone, but now I upgraded to the Sony ZV-1.
Oh, just, sorry, you're away from the mic a little bit. It's hard to hear you. Say that again.
So I use my Sony ZV-1 mic, not my Sony ZV-1 camera for all my recordings now for my skits.
Do you know how much that costs roughly?
I think it's like $700.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Is it like a little mirror? Is it a mirrorless one?
It's not. I don't know if it's mirrorless. It's
okay.
I like it because there's no like lens, like a fixed lens to it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. But it does, you get a bit of the blurred background, sort of vibe with the low depth of field.
Exactly.
But you used to do a lot of these on iPhone.
Oh, before what I used to do is I had no green screen or anything. I would use the green screen effect on my on the TikTok app.
Oh,
and I would
got
just,
it.
Literally record like this, just like looking into the camera with my phone.
And you would just speak into the mic of the of the Apple of the iPhone.
Yes, but I actually have a little thing for that as well. So as I started getting more and more views, and I wanted to upgrade my equipment, the first thing I bought was this mic right here. It's a Shure mic. I forgot what MV88. And so this mic would attach to the bottom of my iPhone, and the audio quality would be so much better than just the normal audio coming from the iPhone mic. So I would just attach this, and it would just help significantly with the audio. It's a Shure mic, so it's pretty good reputation, pretty good audio. So that's what I did before I started switching over to the Sony camera.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So those are that's the setup. Pretty low lift, and you said you've got a green screen as well, like if you need it in the background now, but you used TikTok has a green screen function in it.
Right.
So, and then just really quickly, I noticed, if you don't mind me saying, so I see you've got a podcast OS here in the back on the left hand side. I'm curious and I have the same one. It's from, is it Janelle or
yes.
Yeah, she did a newsletter one and a podcast one. Curious if your short form videos tab in Notion is it just like one you made yourself, or was there like a template, something you used?
No, I made myself. I'll share some of this. So my short form video, no, I just made this myself. So where I have like, a tab for every different piece of content. So short form, I have one for newsletter, YouTube, podcast, which I haven't really done in a while, but I have like, I have a little tab for every little specific topic content that I'm doing, live streams, things like that. And then I have a little sponsorship database, sponsored posts where I try to keep, everything organized, and then miscellaneous research and things like that I have, like goals, tool subscriptions. Whenever I'm mentioned in the press, I'll keep a little link here, random ideas. And then a little content calendar that tells me like when I've posted videos. So,
and so just so I know how that works, is that when you're creating like that one we were in before, the Apple video, there's a field there for when you're posting or something like that, right? And then it goes on the content calendar. Okay.
Yeah. So I have a little thing right here. It tells me what date I posted it. And then I'll also put links of when it is.
You're very well organized, man. That's better than most people I know. That is very good.
I try to be organized, and Notion is just amazing.
It's that engineer side coming out of you, man. There you go.
Yeah. My engineering brain helps a little bit when it comes to this stuff. So I have like nodes, and like sometimes if I have like articles and stuff that I want to use to help me, like, so if I'm thinking about a video, I'll just like post some tweets or articles or whatever that I can reference back if I'm, just coming up with ideas for a video. So I'll put that in the same little Notion page. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll do the script, and then after that, it's time to film. I'll film the video in front of my green screen, and then I'll show you what the final result looks like.
Just to clarify, so there's two characters here, Apple and investors. So do you read through the investors one-on-one, and then you do the Apple side another, and then stitch it together, or you go back and I'm assuming that's how you do it, because you're wearing different outfits sometimes.
So yeah, what I used to do early on, because there was no way to I used to record everything in the TikTok app, so I would have to change clothes every time.
Oh my God, no way. So you'd read Apple is true.
Yes. Yes.
That's crazy.
This is early on. I'm talking 2020 early on.
Okay.
But now, I just read all the investors line, then I read all the Apple lines, in separate takes. So I don't have to constantly keep changing clothes back and forth.
But that is now on your SD card or whatever, because you've got it on.
It'll be on my SD card in my camera.
Got it. And that could have like times where you made a mistake as well, right? Like it's often not in one take.
Oh,
sure.
I'm about to show you that next.
Okay, cool.
This stuff, I will do multiple takes of each line. Cause it's tough trying to figure out like what inflection you should use, how you should pause, what facial expressions you should use. Like I try to like do multiple iterations of each line. And then I'm like, okay, I'll pick the best one in post.
Yeah, completely.
And so I'll show you the post on what that looks like. So then, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, no, go ahead. So this is from your script you recorded. Now it goes over to editing, right?
Absolutely. So that's the next step. So I'll take everything in my SD card.
Descript, here we go.
Yeah, Descript. Yep. I took everything in my SD card and move it over to a hard drive that I have locally. And then from there, I'll put it into Descript. And this is what the final result is, or this is what like the raw result is. So I'll have like a little tab. So I create a new project under Descript, and in there I'll have 3 different compositions that they call it. So one for the raw investors, video, and then one for like the Apple character, and then I create a final one, which is where I kind of put it all together. So I'll walk through kind of how this works. And this is starting to get pretty technical when it comes to like Descript specifically. So stop me if I'm starting to bore you with the details.
Just real quick, are you? This is in vertical already. So when you recorded it, was it in vertical dimensions or did you make it into that?
Great question. Yeah, it's vertical dimensions. I keep the camera on its side.
Oh, like portrait. Okay, got it.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So yeah, I recorded vertical. Absolutely.
One less step for you as well. All right. And so now we can see the green screen before. Now you've got this in the background.
Right. So this is what it looks like.
Okay.
This is what it looks like in front of the green screen. I'm recording it. And I just say the lines. Now I got to figure out which direction to look, but I say the lines multiple times, and yeah, just me saying the lines multiple times over and over again, taking multiple takes, and for each character, for each line. So I'm trying to see why I won't play.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So
got it.
And just say it over and over again.
You look like a pro, man. I can see just the like seeing you. I mean, it's like it's funny, especially without the sound. You could just see, you're really acting it out, man. That is impressive. And so
yeah, it's just as you can kind of see, like it's what Descript does. What I love is it just like transcribes everything for you.
So good.
And so now I know exactly like, okay, I said this line. Let me just figure out the 3 takes. I see the 3 takes, and then I can listen through whichever the best take is. So let me just back up a little bit. So I have the 2 characters in here. I have the investor and I have Apple. I have the 2 characters and I have all the lines. Then I'll go and create a new composition, and I'll just kind of pick the best lines based on the script. So I'm like, okay,
you copy and paste it in.
Right. So I'll go. So I'm like, okay, the video starts with the investor talking first. Then I'll go to the investor one, and then I'm like, okay, cool. I have multiple takes. Let me just find the best one that I like, and then I'll just copy it. I'll just go here. I'll just copy, and then I'll paste it to the new. Let me just show you an example. I'll just paste it over. Boom. And I'll just paste
Isn't it
over.
incredible? Descript, I will say,
oh my God,
this is not paid for by Descript, but I think they've done an amazing job with it. Because for people who've ever used Final Cut Pro, Adobe, even Windows Movie Maker back in the day.
Yeah.
This was so much harder because you're seeing a waveform, not and obviously a video, but the audio you don't hear, you don't read. So Descript transcribes it, and you see it side by side, so you can copy and paste. You can also take out the ums and ahs automatically because they've got a nice tool for that. It doesn't always work 100% with me. Like I use it for my ad reads for stuff, and I'll often take out gaps and stuff, which is so helpful.
Yep.
But sometimes maybe it's my accent, but it doesn't always capture it properly. But yeah, that is pretty good still.
It is so good. I mean, I'm so bullish on this company. Again, they're not paying me to say any of this stuff. I mean, I'm a very, very happy customer.
Yeah.
And I love their product. And yeah, so I used to use Premiere Pro like a year or so ago, but ever since I moved to Descript, I mean, the editing process has been so much smoother,
so much quicker, better, right?
Yeah. So much quicker. So that's what I do. Yeah. So like, the editing stuff is, the editing is like, I have a lot of people hit my DMs up saying, hey, I'll be your editor. Like, if you want to hire an editor, let me know. And I've never been able to give that up because I'll be honest, editing is part of my creative process.
Yeah,
I need to edit to see like which line I want to use. That's why I do
and
multiple takes.
you like it enough to want to do it versus like I'll say a podcast edit I did do originally, but that's like hour and a half, brutal. 2 hours, and it's like Rafa, who is doing mine now, he's great at it, he likes doing it, and he's not, maybe if he did it for himself it would be different too. It's like if you're listening to yourself for a few hours, it's like it's a different experience. So I think if this is a bit different, it's like a 1 minute, you're cutting it down, and it does make quite a difference. Like the taste of knowing what you prefer is up to you. So
yeah, and just to give you how much editing goes into it, so just one character I have about 10 what is this, like almost 15 minutes of raw footage. 15 minutes, because I'm just doing multiple takes. And sometimes what happens is I'll like ad lib some stuff. I'm like, that doesn't hit right. Let me just try it a different way, and maybe it'll work in post. The last thing I want to do is like put my clothes back on and take another, take another
so when
again.
You said put your clothes back on,
as in like,
it makes it sound, I know what it made it sound like you were doing this naked, not just a green screen. Sorry. But I know what you're saying. Okay.
Put my costumes back on. So that's just like the nitty gritty process of just like finding a line, liking it, copying it over to a new composition, and then going to the Apple one. Okay, which one do I like more? Okay, I like this one more. Boom, and just doing that. Copy. That's great. Going to the new one.
Do you use any of the tools around taking the ums and ahs out, taking gaps out, any of those?
I'll take the gaps out, but I don't really use the ums and ahs part out, because sometimes like I want the ums and ahs in the video just to make it sound like real and authentic.
Real, yeah. Okay.
I'll do the gaps because I'll have some gaps. I'll just use that to cut the gaps, and then I'll have to go back in there and fine tune it, because sometimes it's not right. So then I'll watch the video back. I'm like, okay, there's probably too much of a gap still. So then I'll just manually like go in there and cut that one. Exactly.
And then what about, so that's really helpful. So it sounds like it ends up matching roughly your script originally, which you've already checked the duration using that tool you showed earlier.
Yep.
So you know roughly it's around a minute 15 or whatever you're aiming for. Now you've got a video with a green screen, but it's the right script. So what I saw in the final composition, in Descript you already had the background. How'd you do that? Yes. I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah, so Descript has this feature where you can do a green. They have a green screen effect feature. So if you go to where is it again?
I think it's effect screen screen. You got it there, yeah.
So they have a green screen one, but what I use is chroma key. So what green screen does? So what green screen does is if you don't actually use a green screen, it'll cut the background using AI. But if you have a green screen, you'll use chroma key, and then you just like do like the dropper thingy, and then it'll like pick whatever mine's automatically done it, but like you just tell what color green screen you have, and it'll remove it. It's a little bit more cleaner compared to using the green screen feature, because the green screen feature is using AI.
Oh, got it. Like the way Zoom would do, or the way TikTok does.
Right.
But and then what about actually putting stuff? I've never honestly used it. I've used it mostly for just ad reads and stuff, so I don't actually do it for video much. How do you add now there you've got the Apple image in the background? Do you do that in Descript as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do is I just like Google like Apple Offices, right? Google Images, find one that like works, and then save it, and then I just add it to. You can add an image to like the Descript timeline. It's kind of like Premiere.
It's like the background. Got it. Yeah, it's like an image. And so you can do that as overlays and stuff too. I assume you can just change, because you're using it as a background, and you've got two layers here, which is your image of yourself is on top. So I'm assuming that supersedes whatever's on the background, like Premiere or Final Cut Pro.
You can change the order. Yeah, you can change the order to be like, I want the image to be in the background. So you can like you can click it, and then you can select layer order, so you can bring it to the front.
Oh, there we go. It's just like PowerPoint, man. There we go. That's perfect. All right.
Exactly.
Damn. All right. So that's very easy, and you can do all of this in Descript. So you don't even use Adobe at all by this point. It's already done. I literally
canceled my I had a subscription that I was running.
Wow.
And I canceled it a couple months ago because I'm just like, I don't need it anymore.
Damn, that's incredible. What about you've seen like Callaway, what he does, and I'm going to share this with him because he told me he would be open to trying Descript, and maybe there'll be ways. I know he does a lot of like edits with the images and stuff. Do you think you can do that in Descript with the way he does? He's got like his head on the top, and he does like overlays and stuff.
Oh yeah.
You can do that here as well.
Yeah, I've done videos like that where where you have like the exact, you're talking to the
Same
camera and you can
format.
do overlays. Yeah, same kind of format. It's just like Premiere when it comes to that. Maybe not as like advanced tools, but yeah, you can do a lot of stuff like that on Descript as well.
That's incredible. Yeah, really helpful to see that. And again, for people only listening, I'd highly recommend clicking and checking the video out because you can see the whole timeline here. And I know this is very in the weeds, but for someone like me, let's say, if I wanted to create a video, most people will stop at, oh, I created a script. And you're like, okay, now what? Like, now you've actually shown me how to do it. I could replicate this. So this is really, really helpful, man.
Totally.
Great. So now you export the video.
Yep.
This is a very specific question because I'm a sound person. You know, when you do the export, does it ask you to normalize the levels and stuff? Do you do that?
Or it does not ask me to normalize it, but you can right click it and you can ask it to auto level the clip.
Oh, cool.
So if I have a situation where I have to auto level, typically I don't have to because like my mic is always like within the same distance. It's already good. But sometimes there'll be a situation where I'll have to auto level it, and you'll have to do that. But it doesn't ask you to do that.
What about if you, because now this was using your camera and your mic. If you were doing this, you're walking with your phone. I don't know if you did that recently because you're doing more of these ones yourself. Is there anything different when you're doing that version in Descript? Like,
if I was doing it with my phone,
yeah, because you don't have the proper mic and stuff.
Yeah, so what you could do, I guess you could. You can auto level the clip, and what you can also do, they have this little effects feature, effect where you can do. They have this thing where you can it's studio sound. Here it is.
Studio sound. That's
studio
it. Okay.
Sound, and it's hit or miss.
Away. Yeah,
it's hit or miss.
Yeah. All right, cool. That's good to know though, because I have tried that one. Sometimes it works pretty well, like you said. It's like I think they take the background noise away, and they're trying to enrich your voice. Which when I've done this in the past, way back in the day in Adobe, I think it was Adobe Audition, you literally take like a sample. Like often when I did podcasts, I would start with 10 seconds of silence. So you capture the background noise of the room.
Okay.
And then you start recording, and then you can take that background noise and say, remove that from the rest of the hour and a half interview. It worked really well.
Oh, nice. I don't know you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it anymore, but that was, if you're really trying to take the sound level to another level, that's a good way to do it. Great. So this is now you've got the video. Now do you do many overlays or anything like that, or by this point it's just you speaking?
No,
you've
I'll
got
do some
captions
overlays
as well, right?
Yeah, the little captions are automatic. You can there's a little captions button. You just click this and you add captions. Like it's really easy to add captions. And I'll do like some overlays. Like I think I had a couple overlays when it came to let's see.
What's your kind of philosophy on that? Like, I know you're optimizing for scale versus quantity, right? So you want to make sure you're doing lots of videos. What's your philosophy on that around when you need an overlay, when you don't, when it doesn't really matter? Like, I'm curious what you think about it.
I always try to do it with the least amount of time as possible. So I'm like, do I really need this overlay? Like, does the audience
is it going to add much of a
yeah. So I tend to lean to like not doing overlays. Like what I'll do is the only thing that I'll do is so I'll take this video, right, and I'll post it on TikTok. But before I post it on TikTok, I'll use like a TikTok text to have some sort of like description like that pops up at the beginning of the video that tells the audience what the video is about. So in this case,
so it's the actual made in TikTok video. Yeah, got it.
For example, this one, Apple Q2 earnings recap. Like this is using TikTok's native text.
So wait, are you showing another? I can just see the script.
Oh, my bad. Okay, hang on. Let me show you that.
That's actually a good point. Why are you bringing that up? Is that also because TikTok prioritizes videos that are made in TikTok?
I've heard that rumor. I don't have any stats to back it up.
Yeah. Okay, here you go. So for people only listening, there's the typical overlay you'll see both on TikTok and even Instagram has stuff like that. Yep. So and does that it just comes up for the beginning. So
yeah, and sometimes I'll add a couple ones in the middle if I need to. Like in this one, I'm like, okay, well, this is easy. I'll just show Apple Q2 revenues. So that way TikTok, again, I don't know if this is true, but it's like, okay, this guy's actually using TikTok's features. Yeah. Maybe I get like a 1% boost in the algorithm. I don't really know. I don't really care, but I just do it anyway. So I'm like, okay, it can add a little bit. It doesn't take a lot of time. It takes like 5 seconds to add this overlay.
Great, man. And then so now you post it directly in the TikTok app on your computer, or what? Does it make a difference?
Yeah. I don't think it makes a difference. You can post it on the TikTok web interface, but I just use my phone because I'll export it, I'll put it on my phone, and then I'll post it on Instagram and TikTok. So it's just easier to do it on my phone.
Got it. And now this is getting a little bit tactical, but just curious. I see you've got a few hashtags in here. What is the, again, there's only 3 hashtags. It's not like spamming it. Do hashtags make much of a difference on TikTok nowadays, you think?
I don't think it makes that much of a difference. So the hashtags the one hashtag that I always use is my username. So Admani explains. And I think that's nice because if someone wants to pull up all my videos, they can just click that and then boom, they have all my videos, which is nice. And then sometimes I'll add some hashtags.
Oh, longer videos.
Like there was one, like this is actually was directed by TikTok. TikTok was like, hey, add hashtag longer videos if your video is longer than a minute. And maybe they were just like, it was a notification to do it. And I did it.
Yeah, I mean, if they're telling you to do it, it's normally a good idea to do it because that means they're accounting for it. So, and then earnings. And so this is nowadays, but it's difficult to tell if it's making a difference, I guess.
I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I mean, you could do like a TikTok, you could do like just spam it with hashtags. I don't know if it makes that much of a difference. I think
what about on Instagram? Do you think that makes a difference on there?
I don't think it makes that much of a difference.
Because it used to be like 5 years ago, if you're posting on Instagram, you did want to add hashtags. Nowadays, I'm not sure. If anything, I think sometimes it almost feels like spam to the algorithm. And it, like for sure, like on Twitter, for example, if there's more than 2-3 clickable things, whether that's an app mention, obviously a link just gets nuked completely. But it's just that's interesting to know because I mean, I guess it's interesting for you now because you have an existing follower base who've seen your videos. So even if they're not following you, they've seen your videos. It's going to surface in their feed, and if enough people see it, it will get out to more people. Is there any, the other tactical thing is time of day? I'm just asking that because I have heard some people say certain times of day for them they post. Is there anything for you? You have a rule around that, or you just let it fly whenever it's ready?
I just let it fly. I mean, whenever it's done, I'm going to post it and just, let it into the world. I haven't, I mean, if
you don't want to be sitting on that, man. You just want to get it out there by then.
Exactly. I mean, if I finish a video at like 1 o'clock in the morning, then I probably will wait till like, when I wake up the next day to post it. But if it's like any normal hours, I'll just post it if I finish.
Yeah. Is there any other, now the engineering brain, I'm curious, because this is all very creative. Like, I love the process, simple. It sounds like this could be done in a few hours, right? Like, how long would that process have taken, you think? You said half an hour for the script. Recording was probably another
I honestly, it depends. But I'd say like, for a video like that, it could take about 4 hours, 4-ish hours. Like the script will take me anywhere between half an hour to an hour. It just depends. Like sometimes I can bust out the script super fast, and sometimes I just can't figure out how the video is gonna end.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So what about sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so half an hour to an hour for the script, and then filming actually will surprisingly take half an hour to an hour as well because I'm changing outfits, multiple takes, but let's just say half an hour most times.
I just love the outfit change, man. It's so amazing. And then the editing, you think what probably takes around an hour or two?
Yeah, an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. Because like sometimes I'll have to add music in there or some sound effects.
That's a good point actually. So what about music? Because obviously we talked about TikTok's soul having a music background back in the day is still obviously a big part of it. What do you do with music? Because a lot of people use like trending music, for example. Is that and it's different on TikTok versus Instagram, right? And then there's probably rules around using native. I don't know much about this, but curious. Like in TikTok, do you select a song or is it adding music in the video itself?
No, you can select the song, but I don't use that stuff. I don't use TikTok's music anymore.
Okay,
I'll just try to find some royalty-free music. There's a few websites that are out there, like Epidemic Sounds and things like that. And I'm like, okay, this what kind of music fits this kind of skit? And sometimes I'll have no music, and because what I've noticed is like the music doesn't make that much of a difference, but like sound effects will be sometimes relevant. So in this case, I had like a Siri sound effect and it added to the video. So little things like that I'll add, but sometimes I'll just do like 0 music and 0 sound effects.
Love it. All right, man. That's really helpful to see. The last few questions I have on that part, and we'll wrap it up soon, is I can see you've got these green screen ones where you're talking about like news or something. Like you've got a Sam Bankman-Fried one, and you've got references in another one on the right-hand side, the fourth one in the first row.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what is that? Again, it looks like the same process. You're using the green screen, and instead in Descript, instead of the Apple image, you've just put those images instead.
No.
Right?
So for videos like this, I'm not using Descript. For videos like this, it's either
All
through
TikTok.
CapCut or through TikTok's own video editing app.
Got it. Okay, cool. Gotta ask then. So what's that? Like, when do you choose to do CapCut versus Descript? Is that more off the dome ones?
Yeah, off the dome, because it's just so much easier. I can record directly in CapCut. So I can just record directly in CapCut, and I'm just gonna record there, edit it there on my phone. I don't have to open up Descript, and boom, I'm good to go. And like like for example, this one, like it'll just hang on, I'm trying to pause this.
Yeah, that looks so much quicker. Like, because the green screen is working pretty well there without a real green screen, right? So like that is, well, actually, when you're recording that on your phone, is there even a green screen behind you?
No,
that's just the phone.
Just the phone, yeah. Just the phone. And so like the feature works really well on CapCut or TikTok's editing app. And I'm just like, I take a couple screenshots. I kind of know what I'm going to talk about. Take a couple screenshots of some articles that I think are relevant, and boom, 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 off the dome, talk about it, and try to upload it within 30 minutes sometimes, just like boom, 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 and it's up.
Love it, man. All right. So that brings us on to the last couple of things about this. So I mentioned it earlier, this idea of quality versus quantity. Sorry, actually, was there anything else before on your screen you want to share with us, or before we cut out?
Yeah, so the only other thing that I'll say is like, so those are the two main type of videos that I do, is like, the educational with the green screen, quick off the dome, and then like the script, the sketches, the funny sketches. The third one that I try to do, incorporate here there to be more personal and get people to like, get behind the scenes.
Is this a Sephora unboxing video?
Yeah, so like so I got my wife told me to, she got a Sephora box delivered to her, and she wasn't at home, so I was unboxing it for her. So I'm just like, this is kind of funny. Like the packaging was so big for a really tiny item. So I'm like, this be a funny little video. Spent like 15 minutes making the video. I'm like, boom, upload. And like it doesn't get the most views or anything, but it's just a good behind the scenes. And again, it's volume, get people behind the scenes of like what I'm doing. And so I try to do videos like that. And then these are the vlogs that I was doing before. I'm just like, going about showing people what it's like. Right.
This is dope. Looking fresh in that hat, bro. Look at that. Love it, dude. That's amazing.
So yeah, that's pretty much it as far as like what you see in my profile.
Very cool, dude. And then, so if you don't mind, have you still got a Notion open?
Yeah, I do.
Could we just see the content calendar since we're doing it? The question I had was around the volume, right? So again, like this is up to date, I'm assuming, roughly.
Yeah, it's pretty much up to date. Yeah, as you can see, I haven't been posting much the last couple of weeks.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, this is pretty much up to date. Now, sometimes like the off the dome ones, this is not perfect, right? Because like off the dome ones, sometimes I'll just forget to log. I try to log everything, but I'll forget to log them. All the sketches that I do back and forth, I always have a little thing in Descript.
Because you've got to write the script already,
exactly,
right? So it's kind of where. So that's nice. But yeah, I'm the same, man. I have like a whole setup and mine is a lot less than yours, but it's just like, sometimes it feels like admin. Like even for my editor, I had a whole view set up for him. And then with NAA, which he also does, I literally just send him a photo of the upload and like a title and be like, you know what you're doing, sort of thing. He does the rest. And so we've just switched to that with Create Lab, and it's actually very nice. But I need to do it for my own, because I have like sponsors in there, and I have like, like for my own admin, I do keep that. But yeah, this is helpful to see. But it's interesting because I have the same thing of like, oh, was that actually the right date, or did it change? And you have to get, it's like in the job, like it's the hygiene of keeping the CRM up to date, like in a sales job or something like that.
Exactly. And so what I've tried to do is set like a weekly reminder. Like at the end of the week, I'll go back and like just spend like 30 minutes to log everything. Okay, I forgot to log this video. I'll do it real quick, and just so it's all organized. And like I'm trying to think like 5 years from now. Imagine like 5 years from now, if I want to like find a video.
Oh yeah.
It's all here, and I can just like go back to this calendar. It's so much easier to do compared to like, or like, what was I talking about a year from now? I can go back, reference that video, and it's just, I just want to have that log with me, and it's just, I don't know, it's not, doesn't take too much time either.
No, it's nice, man. No, I think it's nice to see in Notion is well set up there.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I had was around like how often you're posting. And I know you said like last few weeks you've been doing less, but just before that, is there a rough like target you have for the week? How's that work for you?
You know, I don't, ideally I want to post every day, right? Ideally I want to post every single day. And I actually, like, my goal at one point was to post 10 videos a week. And I don't think it's that hard, but again, we just get into our own heads about like, oh, this isn't like perfect. This isn't good enough. And I've been doing this for a few years now, and I still get in my own head. I'm just like, oh, like, does anyone really care that, this happened? And the answer should be, it doesn't matter. Just post it anyways. Because again, to me, TikTok is a volume game. Like at least that's what I think. It's like, just post it. You don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. Yeah. Just do it. And as long as it's not something off, just like completely random, if it's even somewhat relevant, just do it. And the more you do, the faster you're going to get at it. But again, I still get in my own head. I'm like, oh, like, I thought this video about, I don't know, some random, like Messi making this much money for Apple might be interesting, but maybe not. So I want to get to the point where I'm posting 10 times a week. And hopefully I can get there. And 10 times a week with at least one comedy sketch in there once a week. So that's what my ultimate goal is. There's been times and months where I've been able to hit that. And there's been times and months like right now, because we're having a baby soon, where it's like I haven't been able to do it. So it just, I don't.
Congrats on that, by the way. I know the little inside baseball here. I just happened to suggest the day that your wife was due. So so we're recording a little bit before, but that's amazing, man. Well, congrats on that. That's number 2 for you, yeah?
Number 2, yeah.
Amazing, bro. All right, cool. So yeah, well, that's helpful to see. So ideally 1 a day is what you're aiming for, but like it isn't always that, of course. It's always hard to do.
Exactly. I mean, the people that I found that have the most success that I'm like, okay, this person's doing it. This person's doing really great are the ones that are posting a lot. Like if you think about the TikTokers that are famous for being TikTokers, like the Alex Earls, right? Or like even like back in the day where it was Charlie D'Amelio and all of them, they were posting a lot of freaking content.
Yeah.
And I think what some people have chosen to do, and I don't think it's wrong, is to go the more higher production route, but less volume. And that works too, if that's your thing. But to me, I would just rather try, for short form content, I would still lean towards lower production, but higher volume.
Quantity.
Quantity over quality. Yeah.
And I think especially, I mean, an interesting example in contrast is Callaway. Obviously just had him on. I know you've seen his stuff. I don't know if you guys have spoken, but he would probably agree with you in terms of, especially in the beginning, you both said the same thing to me. The reason it's important in the beginning is you have no followers. Yeah. You're just trying to see if you can get good at this. So that is the most important thing, it seems like. And I've heard that across every, podcast, I'd say the same, YouTube. It's just like getting in the reps, essentially. It's like create enough that you can get in a flow of creating and find your voice a little bit. And then you can make that decision later. But I think a lot of the time, in the beginning, people might be overthinking it. They're like, oh, it needs to be at this level before I can do it. And that is you normally need to, like, you should be a little bit embarrassed of the first one, like the first 10 probably, where you're I'm not 100% there yet. And so that's kind of, even me, like when I listened to episode first 10 of Creator Lab, like it was actually pretty good quality. Like the sound was amazing, and I did a lot of work to make it sound good, but it's just the actual flow. I was a pretty okay interviewer, but even compared to doing, hundreds later now, like you're just obviously better because you've done more, right? So the most important thing was just getting out there. I do think it is slightly different for long form because it's a bigger ask, right? Because you're asking someone to try, and you want to retain those people because it's a lot less people. But
if you think about like, I always think about like, okay, so like Dave Portnoy, when he was starting Barstool, the man was putting out, 20 blogs a day back when blogging was everything, right? It was blogs. That's all he was doing. Like, to me, volume is really, really important if you're starting out. And whenever I don't scroll my TikTok, which is funny. I don't scroll my TikTok feed as much anymore. Because I just don't have like the time to get suckered into it anymore.
As well. Yeah.
Right. But whenever I do that, and I like see an up and coming creator, I'm like, okay, I've seen this guy come in my feed a couple more times. Let me see what it is. And like, oh, he'll go from like 100,000 followers to like 600,000 followers in like say a month or 2 or 3. The number one thing that I've seen is that this person is posting literally 5 to 6 times a day. And I'm just like, oh my God. And it's almost always that where they're just posting so much volume that that they eventually they find their audience, they find the right niche, they find the right topics, and it's great. And now with TikTok paying relatively decent money, I mean, you can make $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000 a month if you can like generated enough volume. It's all about views. Yeah. So I don't think about that. That's not my main driver, but I'm just like, if you want to have growth, if you want to continue to, if you want to see growth or get started, like to me, volume is the game. Like I would try to dedicate at least 2 videos a day. If you want to start creating content, try to do 2 videos a day for a month and see what happens.
That's great advice, man. In a similar vein, if someone was starting again from zero today, specifically on TikTok, is there anything you do differently? I think that was already great advice, but anything else just before we talk about live? Because I know you've been doing some live as well. It's fine if nothing else, but yeah. No,
I think volume and do TikTok live, and we can transition into doing TikTok live. There we go.
Look at that. You're like a stand-up comedian. I like it. So let's talk about live, because I have been seeing a lot of creators on TikTok doing lives. Obviously, there's Twitch, there's YouTube Live, even Twitter or X has Spaces, which is a form of live, right? Different, but like a form of live, like being there in the moment. What's going on with that? Because I don't really fully know enough about it. Obviously, I understand like why, some people like live, but curious on TikTok, because you pretty much do it every day, no? Or I've seen you on there a lot. Okay. I was the month of August or the month of July and August, I was pretty much going live every weekday. And yeah, so this is what my theory is, right? I think TikTok is pushing live, and it's continuing to push live. If you think about like live streaming in America, at least, like we really only have one dominant platform where live streaming is the culture. Instagram, Twitch, right? Twitch. YouTube people live stream, but it's really not the culture on YouTube to live stream. Yeah, it's not as big. It's kind of a peripheral thing.
Exactly. Same with Instagram. I mean, Instagram Live was pretty cool during the pandemic. When have you
with those versus battles? Remember those?
Yeah.
Or the music ones, but sorry.
But no one goes live on Instagram anymore, right? Like you don't see that anymore. And it's just not part of the culture. Instagram is all about Reels now. They've been successful with, and stories, but no one does live. I think TikTok realized they can kind of dominate this niche, and they can kind of stand out from Instagram, because Instagram copies everything. When they did Reels, how do they stand out? And live seems to be that feature of like casual live, where you don't have to have a Twitch setup where it's like you have to have like a gaming PC and all this stuff. You can just go live on TikTok, and they'll give you your audience just like they were doing early on with short form. So I've noticed that. I'm like, whenever I go live, not only does it help bring new followers in, but it also helps the views of my existing videos.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem that you hear about when people talk about TikTok is, well, you're just a face in the algorithm. You can't really build community, because it's just like, how are you any different from everybody else in the algorithm? You really can't build a connection with the audience. Absolutely fair criticism of TikTok. Well, how do you get past that? Number one, I think showing videos with your personality matters. And I think that's why some of those authentic videos with just your phone matter, because people like will build a deeper connection with you. But number two is live. If people see you live and interact with you live, it's just a totally separate level of like deeper connection, like live is just so intimate.
Yeah.
I think it's the most intimate form of content. I mean, that's that and podcasts, right?
Yeah.
It's because you're in their ear, you're seeing them.
You're like, it's almost like they're talking to you.
Yes.
If they type it in the chat. Sometimes you can even bring people on, I guess, right? Or
you can bring people on as well.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. I haven't done that before, but you can bring people on.
I remember on Instagram, people did that a lot in the pandemic. Like they'll bring on fans if they're like someone famous. But yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And so you're just doing that on your computer, I take it, for something like that?
So what I used to do was just on my phone. Yeah, I used to do it on my phone, and it was just me like going live. But I'm like, okay, what I want to do is like, I wonder if I can like create some sort of like business show where there has a little bit of production value. I can stand out from the rest of the lives. And so with TikTok, they have their own proprietary software called TikTok Live Studio, which is, which is like kind of like the version of OBS, which you can go live with. And so I downloaded. So it was only available on PC, and I didn't have a PC. I'm a Mac. I'm an Apple boy, right? So I only had an Apple stuff. So I ended up going to Micro Center.
That's so funny, sorry, that it was on PC. That's like the opposite only on PC. What they normally do. Yeah.
I know they didn't have it at all. So I was like, okay, well, this sucks. But I applied to get access to it. I got access to it. And so I'm like, okay. So I went to Micro Center, which is like a computer store, bought like the cheapest PC that I could with like a decent graphics card. And I got started. This was like probably 3 months ago.
Oh,
and
so you're doing that.
You.
Is that what you're doing now? Okay, I didn't. Is this still only on PC?
Yeah, I'm going to share with you what it looks like.
That's so funny. Okay, yeah, let's do it.
So this is, I don't know if you can see that or not. This is what the software looks like. So,
this is cool.
You know,
okay. You've got the ticker at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a little ticker at the top that I update. You can share your screen. You can share your camera. My camera's not showing up here because I'm using it for the Zoom, but you know, you can share.
Wait, are you, the recording we're doing now, is this on your PC too? Or is this on a Mac?
On my PC.
Oh, so you had to switch. Do you switch your whole thing to PC
now?
No.
So what I've done is like
recording.
Only for recording, only for things like this, because I have like my mic hooked up, my DSLR camera hooked up, because I use it for the live stream. So whenever I have like podcast calls or things like this, I just switch over to the PC.
Got it. Okay.
I'm still a Mac guy through and through. I have like 2 computers hooked up to this monitor that I'm using, so I can switch back and forth.
Switch. Oh, that's cool. Okay, got it. So this is the live stream. Yeah, that's cool. Have you ever used any of the other live streams for anything else? Like I forgot what it's called, but I've tried a couple. OBS is the big one. Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't think TikTok is compatible with them. I think TikTok makes you use proprietary software, which is fine. The software works great. Like, I don't have any issues with it. So yeah, I go live on here. And it's great. Like I can do a lot. I can share my screen. It's like having a business show where I'm just like, you know, taking questions from the audience. I'm like scrolling through tickers, scrolling through heat maps of the stock market, you know, live streaming Jerome Powell press conferences and live reacting to them. And man, sometimes like the numbers on here are absolutely nuts. And it's really, really like really fun. Cause like you're interacting with the audience like in real time. And so I love it. I mean, I love going live.
So is this how long? Is this one session, hour and 43?
Yeah.
So you were live for an hour and 45 minutes. Damn.
Sometimes. I haven't done an hour and 43 in a while. So like, for example, so this last one I did on my phone, this was just like a little impromptu one that I was doing. I try to go live like right after I post the video, even if I'm like in bed, just because I think it helps boost your videos a little bit. Yeah. But the other one, these are the ones that I did on my computer. So like hour and 15, hour and 4. And sometimes the views can get just nuts. There was a couple ones that I did where like the views, I mean like 13,000 views just live reacting to.
And that's for people who don't know, like you've got millions of views on your actual TikToks, but live is different. It's like someone has to be there.
Yes.
And it's like, imagine those live people there in a room with you at the time. It's a lot of people at one time. So, and then I've noticed that too. Like I see a lot of lives, first of all, pushed in the feed. And then secondly, as soon as I'm like even on there for like 10 seconds, I might be like, oh, who's this person? And you might click in, and because often I'll click in to see how many people are in there. You have to kind of click in because I'm just curious. And then straight away, I'll start seeing their videos in the feed. So I'm assuming that it's kind of like a retarget straight away on their videos. And it might be a new person I've never seen before.
I think right now it's like the ultimate growth hack when it comes to TikTok. Like, and I think it's just great to like, it shows like if you're really good, if you're really entertaining, like going live is how you gain an edge compared to like, if you're really good at interacting with the audience, really big personality, going live is how you gain an edge compared to like someone who might be like a superior script writer or a superior editor, because live is all about like that authentic, like your personality oozes off the screen, your personality and like your like live interaction with the audience will make a huge difference. And I think that's, you know, a lot of people also use it as a way to like sell something, you know? So if you're live, whether you have like a product, whether it's like baseball cards or whether it's like a course or whether it's like a budgeting spreadsheet or something, you can use it. And the conversions on live are like 100 times better.
Oh yeah, completely. And that's even before TikTok and before social media. If you just think of sales essentially, right? Like even, I'll just use an example. Like I was at Charity Water, right? And so our job was to convince individuals, high net worth individuals and companies, 3 big buckets, like regular individuals and then high net worth and then companies to support our charity, right? And you would just see like, you can run a video on, let's say Facebook and Instagram, like organic post, paid ad. They would actually work incredibly well. Like because we had a really good 20-minute video that was just, it was a beautiful like mini documentary. Yeah. So you can get scale with that.
Right.
But even a high conversion rate, and I won't share theirs, I'm just saying from all the other people I've worked with over the years, an average retail conversion rate on a landing page is 3 to 5%. That's good.
Yeah.
That means someone came on your page and they clicked and bought something, or they signed up for a newsletter or whatever it was. That was your conversion. In person, Scott, the founder, would go and speak in person to 100 people, 1,000 people. Sometimes I've been there when he spoke to like a concert full of 30,000 people or something. And there's people in the audience like crying, like they're so moved. And that you can't do that online. Like there's a difference of just seeing a video. And so I think live is the closest you get to that. Obviously, in person is still superior in a way because you get that physical connection in a way, like you're sharing a space. But live is very close to that. So
I mean, perfect example is these Twitch streamers. They are the most influential people on the internet.
Completely.
The perfect example is Kai Cenat, right?
I was going to say, you saw he shut down Union Square, dude.
He shut down Union
crazy.
Square. I mean, who can do that? Name one TikToker that like no one can do that.
Yeah,
that's like Leo DiCaprio level of like influence. Like it's insane.
It's wild. Yeah, it's very wild. Anyway, that's amazing. Well, that's really helpful to hear your take on live. Last question I have for you, because I know we've been going a while, but this has been amazing, man. Thanks for sharing all of that.
Absolutely.
It's everyone's favorite question, monetization. So how do you think about this? Because obviously the traditional route is you get brand deals, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can do that. But I'm curious, like, how are you thinking about monetizing currently versus the future? And wherever you're able to share examples is always helpful. Without pocket watching, it's just good to know for someone listening, if they're interested, how they could actually make money from doing something like this.
Well, before, I'm talking like last year, the only way to make money from long form content was brand deals, because the TikTok creator fund didn't pay well.
Short form content?
Yeah, short form content. TikTok and Instagram weren't really paying much or anything at all. Honestly, like the TikTok creator fund was pennies. So the only way to make money as a short form content creator was brand deals or having a product to sell to your audience, right? So those are the only two ways. And the way I mostly monetize was through brand deals, some affiliate marketing, things like that. And that relatively wasn't that hard in 2021, 2022. And then the latter half of 2022, the winds totally shifted. Number one, the reality is short form content, when it comes to a lot of financial products, that's my niche, it doesn't always convert well, right? Because if you think about it, you're scrolling through TikTok, you're not going to stop to download a finance app or set up your 401k on Fidelity or whatever app that you're advertising, or open up a high yield savings account on SoFi. Yeah. You're just not going to do that. Because I'm not going to put my social security number in an app as I'm having fun scrolling through TikTok.
Yeah, completely.
So I think a lot of brands realize that, right? It's like, okay, well, finance content doesn't really convert well on TikTok. Instagram is better. YouTube is the best. But so like those started slowing down. When it comes to like actual physical products, I mean, those move like crazy on TikTok. The people that are like tech creators or makeup creators or influencers, like, oh my God. Because like, think about it, it's fun to buy stuff. It's fun to buy stuff that you're going to use.
It's different to a 401k, which is like a bit more of a research thing, right? It's like,
yeah, exactly. No, again, you're not going to impulse open up a 401k. You're going to impulse buy a camera, or you're going to impulse buy a hat or whatever.
Like a piece of makeup. You're like, oh, that looks cool. Let me try it for myself. Yeah.
Exactly. You're not going to do that with your 401k. So I think that was a struggle for finance, and a lot of people that, especially in 2022, when the market turned in the latter half of 2022, a lot of that slowed down. So it was kind of challenging. So the other route that a lot of creators are taking, and I haven't done this yet, but I think I need to, is offering up some sort of digital product. I don't want to like be a course bro, because there's like a connotation for having courses, but it's something, whether it's like a spreadsheet that I use or that I create, maybe it's my Notion template that I use.
I was going to say your Notion thing. I would, love to see something like that. Yeah.
So that's one route that a lot of creators that have taken in finance and have been very successful at it. But now with TikTok opening up the monetization a little bit more, they're paying for views. So you can make, and I know some people that are making $5,000 to $10,000 a month from the monetization thing. I haven't gotten to that level yet. I'm probably doing around $1,000 a month from monetization on TikTok through their new fund, which is great, which is better than what I was doing before from monetization. And then brand deals as they come. But again, brand deals are just so hit or miss, man, because you just don't. you just don't know like when that's going to come your way. There's a lot of outreach, a lot of like work involved, and it's very, very hit or miss. So
you break down an example of a brand deal. You don't have to use names, but like because I'll give an example on podcasts. Generally speaking, I don't do mine like this, but generally speaking, you have a number of downloads or views equivalent. And then there's a brand who's interested in getting in front of our audience, and they say, okay, you've got 100,000 people listening. We'll give you a CPM, which is cost per thousand, essentially, of whatever that amount is. Podcast is quite high. 18 to 25 is industry standard. Some people charge way higher, even $50. And so if you've got 100,000, you do 100 times $25 and you charge that amount. That's generally how it works. Is that the same on TikTok, or how does that work? Or is it more of a hybrid thing with the affiliate and stuff like that?
Well, before, back in the day, it was like, there's no rules. It was like, well, how much money do you want? Boom, we'll give it to you like 2021, 2022 range. Yeah. Now what I see a lot of companies do is move to a hybrid model where they're like trying to figure out how many views you typically get. And they do like a flat fee. It might be like $1,000 flat fee plus, I don't know, $50 for every new sign up or whatever the case is. So it's becoming more of a hybrid model. And I think that's probably good. I think it aligns the incentives of like the brand. Both. Right. You know, both, where like if the video goes viral, you can make $20,000
upside. Right. Same way. Yeah. The way you got that 20K for the public thing. If you'd only been paid $500 at the time because you didn't have any followers, right, that would have been like, damn, I missed out on all this upside as well. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So that's how I've seen a lot of brand deals be structured now. But again, I think I'm starting to notice a lot of finance. It's just, again, finance is just hard to advertise. There's so many regulatory things involved with it as well. It's like, oh, you can't say this, you can't say that. But you know, as far as most brand deals, they're structured that way.
Cool. And does that make you want to create stuff on, say, YouTube or other? You've also talked about newsletter. I know primarily you're not doing this for making a living, but just curious if that changes the way you think about those platforms as well.
Yeah, I mean, it does. You know, I've tried doing all that stuff, but I think I've noticed is whenever I do that, I spread myself too thin, and then like your content suffers everywhere, right? Like, oh, like my TikTok, I'm not posting as much TikToks anymore. I've been reevaluating that a lot. I'm like, you know, maybe I'll just like forget the newsletter. Maybe I'll still try to collect emails and try to do like a monthly one to where at least I have have an email list, which is always nice to have. But ultimately, I think I want to go back to like focusing on one or two platforms and just try to dominate that.
Yeah, completely.
So like for me right now, it'll be like live streaming and TikTok, and just try to dominate that as much as I can. But yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely made me want to like think about like how to run this as a business, how to run this as a creator, and reevaluate like, hey, like how realistic is it for me to be? You know, there was a point where I was doing like zero engineering because the 2022 was just insane. Like the early part of 2022 was like, okay, my God, I'm so busy. I have so many opportunities, you know? So now I'm like, how do I refocus my energy? Because it has been a very challenging this year where it's like, okay, you're going from like making 20, 30 grand a month, which is what the case was in 2022, to like literally making zero. Some months where it's like, there's no deals.
Yeah.
So it's just been a little challenging this year, trying to figure out how to navigate that and how to pivot properly into something where I can, you know, where I can see how come up with a sustainable model to where I'm not just like wild shifts like 10 grand a month, zero, 10, 15 grand a month, zero. It's crazy.
But that's great that you've got the part-time thing too, because then you're covered either way. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. Very helpful. I know we've been going a while now, so I'll definitely should wrap it up soon. Yeah, no, this has gone so smoothly, dude. I really appreciate you making time. I'm so glad we got to connect like this. And hopefully at some point we'll get to do this in person in Houston or New York or wherever.
You got to come down to
man.
Houston. I know you guys say that,
man.
Have you ever been to Houston before?
I've never been to Houston, you know. No, I don't think I have.
The best.
Heard good things.
Best desi food in the world. I mean, in the world.
Oh, yeah?
In the world,
even more. That's amazing.
Even more than London. You could put
even more than Pakistan.
Yeah.
No, I know what I said.
In the Western Hemisphere.
No,
I've been to London. I mean, everyone says London has the best Indian food. I disagree.
But Houston's popping off. All right, I need to check it out. Definitely will let you know if I'm able to make it over, man. But yeah, I really appreciate it. Keep doing the thing, man. You're smashing on there. Great to see you thriving on there, and you've got a real talent for it, man. I think like a lot of the things we talked about today were very interesting because it wasn't just about like, oh, how'd you grow and how'd you make money, which is important, but like enjoying the process, doing stuff you enjoy, adding something interesting to your life is kind of all, you know, I think that's as important as all the other stuff. So I think that's a good example for people to see. And yeah, man, everyone should go follow you. Admani Explains, right?
Yes,
ADMANI Explains. We'll
it's
share that in the show
explains.
notes. Oh, underscore, sorry. On Twitter, I think you didn't have, did you have?
Oh, maybe, I don't think I have it on Twitter, you're right.
I think I was looking this morning on Twitter for some reason, but yeah. All right, man, yeah, underscore explains, but people will find you on there. Just start searching your name, you'll pop up.
Yeah.
And appreciate you, man. Yeah, we'll do this again for sure.
That sounds good. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, brother, nice one.